Hello, hello and welcome. My name is Jenniffer Taylor and welcome to the Lutterloh system page. I'm here every Wednesday helping to enhance your Lutterloh sewing journey, whether that's dressmaking or whether you are garment making. I will hopefully be able to bring you some hints and tips and techniques to help you along in that journey. So I'm a little bit early this week as I'm going on holiday. So what I thought I would do is do a live with you today and then share that again on Wednesday at our normal time, which is 1 p.m. UK time. So we are starting with the Lutterloh. What I thought would be a really good thing to do is go back to the beginning. So if you've never used the system before and wanting to know how you go about doing that, then hopefully this will help you in that investigation. So the first thing we're going to need to do, if you are familiar with the Lutterloh, is that you need two body measurements. You need your bust and your hip measurement. We're going to take those together and then I'm going to show you how to adjust your pattern. Now there's lots and lots of demonstrations on how to draft out your Lutterloh using this special ruler which I've got here. So what I thought would be really nice to take it one step further is if you do happen to draft that out and there's something that isn't quite right, I'm hoping my demonstration today will help take out any of those problems for you. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is obviously take our bust measurement or chest measurement. So as you know from the Lutterloh ruler, you've got your special gauge side which looks like this, and you've got your numbers on this side. If you flip over the tape measure, you have a standard centimetre tape measure, and that's what we're going to be using to take our body measurements. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, you might want to think about, what am I making today? What's the purpose of it? So if it's something quite casual, for instance, then off we go. But if it's for a special occasion, I do recommend that you actually think about what undergarments you're going to be wearing, especially if you're female. What brassiere or undergarments, lingerie are you going to be wearing for that occasion? Because as we know, it does make a difference. So it's worth bearing that in mind, especially when we're thinking about bust points, darts, princess seams, that kind of thing. So we need to know where is the bust going to be on the day. As you can see on my casual day today, so I'm just going to go with my bust as it is. So taking my tape measure, I'm going to be coming around the back. And what we want to try and do here, so it's going to be, I'm using the camera to see, but obviously at home, if you've not got somebody to help you, then your mirror is going to be your best friend in this fit section. So what we want to do is we want to take the fullest part of the bust, and we want to think about the tape measure being parallel to the floor. So we want to make sure there's no dipping or sagging in the front and the back, that it is parallel. And then we do want a tight measurement, not so tight that it's actually distorting our chest shape at all, and we don't want it saggy either. So it is a close fitting measurement. And I've actually gone down in size. So the last time I took this measurement, I was 117. I'm now 115. It's amazing the difference it makes. So it is worth just double checking what your measurement is. So if you've drafted something out previously, just double check that you are actually at that same measurement, because with the Lutterloh, it literally makes the adjustments to the centimetre, which is why we love this system so much. So I'm currently 115 on my bust measurement. Now with the hip, if I just move back slightly, this could be a few places. So what the Lutterloh likes to say is the fullest part of the body. Now this could be the tummy, it could be the upper hip, and bottom, it could be the upper thigh. So I would take a few measurements and see which one actually comes out the largest number. And again, we want to have that same principle about it being parallel to the floor. So again, your mirror, in this case, the camera, is my mirror today. So I'm going to be taking my measurement. Now I know that mine is around my bottom. So again, I'm just double checking. So that's just sagging slightly there. So that's 112, so that's right. Haven't lost any on my hips, unfortunately. So again, if I just go up a little bit more, now I'm actually 111, so I'm smaller here. And if I go to my upper thigh, I'm smaller again still. So as you can see, even though I would say I'm quite a square body shape, I'm actually looking for the fullest part. So again, it could be the tummy, it could be the hip, and it could be the upper thigh as well. So again, jot down those measurements. Now, once we have those measurements, then obviously we're going to use those to then draft using our Lutterloh system. So just quick overview of the Lutterloh. So it can come in different sort of shapes and sizes. Is that glaring a little bit? There we go. So we've got the A5 folder here where you have lots and lots of patterns to choose from. Obviously you've got your instructions at the very beginning as well, walking you through everything that we've gone through. So there's the bust and the hip measurements being taken there. And as I said, there's lots and lots of videos on our page on how to draft using the system. But what I would really like to cover today is sometimes the draft doesn't quite fit where we need it to, and we want it to be perfect. So this is how we're going to do that. So I'm going to use one of my vest patterns. You've probably seen these in the system already. It's always a great one to use just to quickly iron out any of those differences. Obviously our body shapes are all very, very different, and we wouldn't want it any other way. So once we've drafted out the vest or the waistcoat pattern is a really good way of quickly ironing out some of those areas that we might need to tweak. So this is the vest pattern here. So again, if I just stand back slightly. So we have a dart, and you see this one here. Now that would have been the original dart from the pattern, but can you see that I've made an adjustment? I will show this on the overhead in just a second. So for me, I know that I have a very long bust point just because of my body shape. So regardless of what undergarment I'm wearing, I still have a very long bust point, so from the shoulder to the fullest part of my bust. So in the Lutterloh it was slightly high, and therefore it wasn't quite sitting how I wanted to. So all I literally did when I lined up my pattern, I found where I wanted that bust point to be. I made a little mark, and I just simply redrew the direction that the dart needed to be. We can also double check on here as well about our waistline, that the smallest or narrowest part of our waist is accurate, and again we can adjust that accordingly, but I will show you that on the overhead in miniature if you like. But if you are new to the Lutterloh and haven't done the vest or the waistcoat before, it's a really, really quick one just to see how does it work, and then you kind of have that insight then when you start going into the more complex patterns, that you can then make those adjustments. Okay, right then, let's go over to our cutting table. So I'm just moving you over to my cutting table now and just making sure that the camera is where I need it to be for the demonstration. Just give me 2 seconds. There we go. Seems about right. Okay, let's move you back. Lovely. So we have our vest pattern here, which I said this is what you're probably familiar with. So you've got the front and back there. So as you can see, we've got this large dart coming in from the shoulder, and then we've got our waistline and all of our points radiating from there. So depending on obviously your pattern pieces, the general rule of thumb is anything on and above, anything above this waistline here is going to be using your bust measurement. Anything on or below is going to be using your hip measurement. Okay, and again, there's lots and lots of videos on the YouTube showing you how to physically do the drafting out, but I wanted to skip that step and show you if there are anything that we need to tweak, how do you do that. Okay, so as I said, here is my larger waistcoat pattern in bigger scale. So as you can see here, this one here is that dart coming in from the shoulder. That was the original bust point, and to correct that, all I did was simply make a dot where I needed the bust point to be, and then using these 2 anchoring points at the top here, I simply redrawed the direction of the dart and then made that adjustment. That's how quickly it is to correct something like that. Another one might be the waistline. So again, depending on your body. So I'm long chested, but also short bodied. So sometimes I actually need to shorten that waistline, and it could be something as simple as folding up and then potentially extending down beyond that point depending on what you're making. So it's as simple as that. Or we would make a cut and then separate the difference. So let's just say it was 2 inches. I would physically cut this paper and move it down 2 inches and then put some new paper in there to sort of fill the gap on that. But we're going to do something a bit more practical here. So I've just brought in my little miniatures over here. So there we have it. So sort of a very basic body shape. I've got this pattern on the fold. So this is the centre front here. We have our waistline, we've got our neckline, similar dart position here, and then we've also got our arm shape here. Now, it might be that we don't particularly want this dart happening in this direction. So let's just say I've made the correction on the length of the dart and where it physically needs to go, but for whatever reason I might decide that I don't want this dart to be here, then we can then start creating different shapes. So how I would do that, if I just turn this around, first of all I need to close this dart down and I need to reopen it somewhere else. So I want it to come in from the side. I just think that it's going to be more flattering in that direction. So I've made 2 cuts, one in towards the side seam and one where the dart originally was. Now to move the dart, all I physically need to do is move my pattern to come in line with the stitch mark, which is this green line here. And can you see that it's reopened the dart into what would be the side seam? So it's given me a cleaner finish on the top, and I've now got the dart on the side of the body. You could even do it so you can have a little bit of both, so a thinner dart here and slightly thinner dart there. We could even create another one in the bottom. So there's no reason why you can't move those darts. It might be that there's a lovely print and you don't want the dart to interrupt that print, for instance, but somewhere on the side of the body, because the arm's going to be there, is going to be less obvious. So again, just because the dart is coming in from the shoulder doesn't mean that you can't move and change that, which is what I love about the Lutterloh, because you are learning how to draft from scratch. So that's just a simple way of moving the dart. Another thing that we can look to do as well, like I said, would be to lengthen or shorten the waistline. So again, just to show you that in real time, is I would make that cut, and then depending on the body shape, I would push up to make it shorter, or I would lengthen to make it longer, and then I would take a separate piece of paper to fill in the gap. Okay, so there's the new waistline. Now obviously this is quite a strange shape because normally it would be together. So what you can then do is take your tailor's curve and redraw those curves to make them a bit more smoother, obviously because this shape is no longer correct. So you could use your curve to redraw those shapes. Likewise, when you're moving the dart, you'd want to redraw that side seam as well. So there's nothing that can't be amended or just adjusted, which is again what I love about the Lutterloh system, because you're getting used to drawing your patterns out. The step for adjusting them and being a bit more fluid with it, you've got it almost like it's given you permission because you've already done that process. Whereas I think sometimes with commercial patterns, it's a bit daunting because you've got all of the pattern pieces there. So not only has this been drafted out to the centimetre, as we know we use our body measurements to the centimetre when we're drafting, we can fine tune those adjustments very quickly by doing something like this. Another one I get asked quite a lot about is, what about full bust adjustments? Well, I thought I'd quickly go through what that would actually look like. So again, I've got a very similar sort of body shape here. We've got a on the fold here, so a centre front, side seam. We've got our arm, shoulder and neckline. Now it might be that when we put it against our body, if I just bring in our mannequin for a second, yeah, that way is probably better. That when we put it on, it's sitting nicely on the side seam here, and it's coming into the bust fine, but then we end up with this sort of gap, like there's not quite enough going on here. Or likewise, the armhole is too big but the bust is fine. So it's too big in the shoulder area, or it's fitting really nicely but it's too tight in the bust area. So this is where you might want to do a bust adjustment, whether that's to increase the bust area or to decrease the bust area, depending on what's going on here. So what we could do, going back to our body measurements, instead of taking our full bust, we could take our upper bust measurement. So again, if I just bring in the mannequin super quickly. So full bust would be going across the fullness of the chest here, and upper bust measurement comes above the bust point and underneath the armpit. So it's like the smallest part of the chest, if that makes sense. So it's coming in just here rather than here on the fullness. So use that to draft out, then that will obviously reduce everything in the shoulder and neckline area for you. And then the fullness will come with the adjustment that I'm going to be doing just now. Okay. So what we want to do, if I just get our pen first, we want to make some areas for it to be able to extend out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 90-degree angle on my Lutterloh ruler. I'm going to draw up towards the bust point, like so. I can either go into the shoulder or into the arm, depending on what I'm wanting to do. So if you have sleeves, for instance, we want to make sure that we're not affecting that measurement as little as possible, because then we won't have to do a sleeve adjustment. So there's a method to the madness. And then we also want to potentially move into here as well. So I'm going to make these 2 cuts for just a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along this line, like so. And then I'm going to move towards the shoulder, but not cut the end. So you can see how it can start to pivot out. So going back to our mannequin very quickly, remember I said about it being tight on the bust and not coming into the centre? What you want to do here is actually physically take a measurement, the distance between the centre front and where the garment or pattern piece is coming to, so you can work out how far you need to move it. Okay, so again, depending on what the measurement is, you would open up this dart to accommodate the difference. Okay, so if it's, let's say, 1 inch, you would move it 1 inch. If it was half an inch, you can move it down. If actually it's overshooting, you can always come in as well. So you can see how things are starting to change there. So you'd need to adjust the waistline here and make that smooth again. But you can make this area smaller but still maintain this neckline, shoulder and arm seam position. Okay, so another thing you can do, like say if you wanted a bit more room, you can then cut into this part here and really start to open it out. So if you've got a lot of fullness in the side of the bust, this might be an alternative adjustment as well. So you can just keep it to what would be the 2 cuts coming into the bust dart and coming into the shoulder, or you could add in that 3rd cut and start to really open that shape out. Okay, now it might be that you need to start adding in some darts. But this, can you see how it's starting to open up that chest area, which is what we're wanting to do? So when this comes out, you're going to need to extend your pattern piece and redraw that area, because obviously just because your bust is full doesn't mean that your waistline has got any bigger. So this is where you need to sort of correct your pattern piece, so you know that that's where it's coming, redrawing that section out, and then you can then square back out again. Does that make sense? And again, just to clarify, you can again repeat that with the reducing of the dart. So we're overlaying the pattern and overlaying here. So reducing in 2 areas, re-squaring that off, and again just re-extending that shape slightly to accommodate the reduction in that area. Or you can reopen like that. So there's lots of ways that you can manipulate your pattern to create the shape in the areas that you need, especially if you have a larger bust, sorry. But I just wanted to kind of show you that on a smaller scale so we can see it transform very, very, very quickly. And I do hope that that's kind of helped make things a little bit easier for you, if that makes sense. So let me just come back to our overhead. There we go. Oh, just moving my camera for you. There we go. So then, I hope that has helped just give you a little insight on how easy it is to amend and adjust your Lutterloh pattern to make those finer tweaks that you may or may not need depending on your body shape. Like I say, we are all wonderful, beautiful people, and everyone have their own unique style and shape, which is why we love our human race is wonderful. But rather than trying to pigeon ourselves into a hole that doesn't fit us, the beauty of the Lutterloh and beauty of garment making is that you can make those finer adjustments, especially with the Lutterloh, very, very quickly to really refine those shapes and silhouettes that we're looking for. So I hope that's kind of given you a little insight of what you need to do and has helped to make it easier for you. So it's only a really brief one today. Like I said, I am off on my little hollybobs for a 3-day breakaway with my husband, which I'm very excited about, but I didn't want to leave you hanging, so I thought I'd just jump on very quickly and go through that tutorial. So if you haven't seen it now, don't worry, it will be reposted again on Wednesday at the normal time of 1 p.m. UK time. I've been Jenniffer Taylor, and as always, thank you very, very much for joining me for Sew Wednesday. And until next time, I will see you again soon. Bye now. If you've enjoyed today's session, then don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We're here every Wednesday with either myself, Jenniffer Taylor, or our new demonstrator, Claire Louise. Until next time, bye now.